Welcome back, artists, art enthusiasts, critical thinkers, and connoisseurs of challenging independent video.
I read an interview in which you described some of your work as shit. Is there any?
Shit.
Yes, shit. You used the word shit.
It's shit. What do you want for it?
If you don't know, Robert Hughes was once the most respected and famous art critic in the world. And Damien Hirst was and is the richest artist in the world with an estimated net worth of over $1 billion. Hughes was the most fierce critic of Hirst, and his most ferocious attacks appeared in the 2008 documentary The Mona Lisa Curse, which was about how big money has utterly devastated the art world. You used to be able to easily find the film and the excerpts about Hirst on YouTube, but by today they've all been removed for mysterious and some speculate nefarious reasons. I've tracked down the documentary and will present here those most amusing and enlightening segments about Hirst, and then, in Hirst's defense, I will share a rebuttal to the film defending Hirst and openly mocking Robert Hughes. Without further ado, here is Robert Hughes introducing Damien Hirst and his infamous tiger shark suspended in formaldehyde.
Another rich collector's Mona Lisa, only with fins. The Physical Impossibility of Death in the Mind of Someone Living is by Damien Hirst. It's been loaned to the Met by its owner, the hedge fund billionaire Steve Cohen. The world's most overrated marine organism. All sorts of stuff was written about it. You know, here was this sublime and menacing emblem of death and so on and so forth. But to me, it's a pretty meaningless object. This poor, sad, wrinkled former shark doesn't fill me with the sensation of amazement that it's supposed to fill museum goers with. It's just an inert bit of inedible fish disappearing into its primal liquid of formalin. It's a comedy, but it's a kind of tacky comedy too, that bears a lot upon the way that we think about art and how it is made. The joke is that this shark functions like a commercial brand for the king of the young British artists. It's a clever piece of marketing, but as a work of art, it's absurd.
Hughes is correct in branding the specimen a poor, sad, wrinkled former shark. That criticism is undeniable and inarguable. But I would further add that the work is a failure for that precise reason, which is a critically flawed execution. It is inconceivable to me that when Hirst originally conceived the piece, he envisioned the shark pathetically shriveled and tattered.
Yeah, but if somebody comes up to me and goes, is that a metaphor for death? I go, it's a shark, you klutz. And if they go, is that just a shark? I go, no, it's a metaphor for death. Never really put the meaning in there, they're just triggers that just hijack any meaning. So I've always gone, yeah. So if anybody says, is that what it's about? I always go, yeah, definitely.
In the end, the piece is not about death, as is claimed in the title itself, but rather about rot and decay. The most dangerous fish in the sea is reduced to a limp, saggy, pickled fish displayed like a hunting trophy. Its open mouth isn't threatening, but looks as if it had been pried open against its will as a form of torture. The unintended failure in terms of the realization of the art and the fact that it is physically repulsive is a crime against aesthetics as well as against the shark. Had the execution matched Hirst's original vision, this might have been an impressive feat, but as is, it's the multi-million-dollar contemporary art equivalent of a burned casserole. Hughes is also right that the work is absurd as a work of art when we consider that the same piece shown at a world-class public aquarium, where you can see live sharks swimming up close, would be ignored and quickly disposed of. It's that curious sleight of hand where something is priceless art when brought into the gallery, but outside of it is neither valuable nor art.
The review you had on Shark Sandwich, which was merely a 2-word review, just said, "shit sandwich."
Where'd they print that? Where'd they print that? That's not real, is it? You can't print that.
For the record, I personally do not maintain that the Shark Tank isn't art at all, even if it is absurd as art. I only say that it is not visual art proper, not the kind of art that uses the visual imagination and visual language, and it should not be mixed up with it. The Shark Tank and many works of conceptual and contemporary art belong to another category of art altogether. I have a little fun surprise at the end of the video related to the shark piece. A decade ago, I did an impromptu comic skit where I interviewed the shark itself. Stay tuned till the end for a chuckle. Now, for another segment you won't find anywhere else on YouTube because it's been scrubbed. Hughes has more to say about another of Hirst's more famous pieces. Here he is addressing Virgin Mother.
The Virgin Mother by Damien Hirst. Isn't it a miracle what so much money and so little ability can produce? Just extraordinary. You know, when I look at a thing like this, I realise that so much of it, not all of it, thank God, but a lot of it, has just become a kind of cruddy game to the self-aggrandizement of the rich and the ignorant. It is a kind of bad but useful business.
Unlike the Shark Tank, Virgin Mother is a successful work of art and even falls into the category of visual art, and within that certainly qualifies as a contemporary sculpture. As Hughes marveled, the piece is extraordinary, but as he also stipulated, it is a miracle of what so much money and so little ability can produce. I would give the credit for this work not to Hirst himself, but to the expert artisans who created it in his name. We can say that without Hirst it wouldn't exist, but neither would Michelangelo's statue of David if it weren't commissioned by the Opera del Duomo in 1464. People will certainly counter that the idea is more important than the realization, but I would point out that Hirst commissioned multiple varieties of the same idea, and whether they are any good or not depends entirely on the execution. Further, when it comes to ideas, Hirst has admitted, or boasted, that he stole all of his ideas.
Now all my ideas are stolen anyway. All my ideas are stolen anyway. I mean, I think when I started at Goldsmiths, that was the best thing, really, was when you realise you don't have to be original. You know, they used to say, don't borrow ideas, steal them.
Even with stolen ideas, the titles of Hirst's pieces are thinly veiled attempts to superimpose a veneer of gravitas on what are otherwise rather plebeian appropriations of found objects. This Virgin Mother is really just an enlarged copy of a toy anatomical model, replete with detachable organs and skeleton, that was marketed as an educational tool for school children. It is merely the female version of Hirst's Hymn of 1999 to 2005, which was an exact copy of a model by the company Humbrol, which you can see in the upper right. He was sued by the company for copyright infringement. Hirst was neither responsible for the design, the realization, or even the idea of appropriating science kits to blow up into priceless fine art commodities.
Don't borrow ideas, steal them.
Rather, he is the astute and avaricious businessman with an ego that crosses over into megalomania. His brand of art prices out virtually all middle and working class artists who couldn't hope to fund one such creation, let alone thousands or tens of thousands. That said, this particular version of the appropriated female anatomical model, with a twist of lime, is quite impressive. But the way to think of personalities such as Damien Hirst, Jeff Koons, Andy Warhol, and others is not as artists, but as corporations that employ or commission teams of artists to produce massive quantities of art objects for rich buyers. It would make astronomically more sense to think of Hirst as, for example, Apex Art Commodities Incorporated.
The newspaper The Guardian's Jonathan Jones writes that the whole of recent British art is a footnote to Damien Hirst's brilliance. Hirst emerged for the first time more than 20 years ago as one of the young British artists. Their work came to define the contemporary art scene of the 1990s. Since then, he has shocked and challenged and thrilled audiences with his work's bold themes and
Damien Hirst is no stranger to celebrity or to controversy. The bad boy of British art is in line for the biggest payday for any living artist ever.
And now for the part many have been waiting for. The day after the Mona Lisa curse aired on the BBC, Germaine Greer took Hughes to task in a rebuttal penned for The Guardian titled,
Germaine Greer note to Robert Hughes, Bob, dear, Damien Hirst is just one of many artists you don't get.
I'm using a computer voice for Germaine, which you undoubtedly just noticed, in order to more clearly distinguish her voice from my own. I'll share her most remarkable statements and give my own responses.
Hughes claims to be astounded that Hirst's 35-feet statue Virgin Mother could be worth £5 million and yet be made by someone with so little facility. What is touching about Hughes's despair is that he thinks that artists still make things.
By gad, Hughes is a lumbering triceratops if he still thinks artists make things. That's as silly as musicians writing or playing their own music. We might as well go back to living in caves and wearing animal skin underwear.
Hirst is quite frank about what he doesn't do. He doesn't paint his triumphantly vacuous spot paintings.
Take note, students of art, the purer the vacuity, the greater the triumph. And you can't beat paying, or better yet underpaying, assistants to do the slipshod paint job.
I mean, the thing is, the question is, you can sell shit to people. It's like, but you can't sell shit to people. I mean, somebody said to me recently, you know, you could sell shit to people, and you just go, well, why would I? When I can sell them great things, you know. You know, you paint, you know, I mean, a spot painting, you put it on the wall, people walk in and say, wow, I can't think what else you would want on your wall.
His undeniable genius consists in getting people to buy them. Damien Hirst is a brand, because the art form of the 21st century is marketing.
The heart of visual art, visual intelligence, and the visual imagination itself in the 21st century is not anything that can be seen at all, but rather the sales pitch.
To develop so strong a brand on so conspicuously threadbare a rationale is hugely creative, revolutionary even.
She might as well have come right out and said that art today is the emperor's new codpiece. The more threadbare Hirst's art, the greater the achievement of his ability to sell it for unheard of prices. Think of it this way. The best artists of today, according to Germaine Greer, are snake oil salespersons, and the test of a true snake oil salesperson is how much they can make selling worthless tinctures to credulous dolts.
The whole stupendous gallimaufry is a vanitas, a reminder of futility and entropy.
And that is something our beloved crusty septuagenarian Hughes could not fathom. The futility, entropy, nullness, and void of Hirst's art reaches the stupendous. The esteemed art critic's sin was to confuse the utterly stupendous with the utterly stupid, the same exact mistake he made with Warhol.
What's your opinion of Warhol?
I think Warhol is probably one of the most visionary artists of our time.
Did you know him?
No, I don't know Andy Warhol.
I used to. I thought he was one of the stupidest people I'd ever met in my life.
Really?
Yeah.
Why is that?
Because he had nothing to say.
Hughes still believes that great art can be guaranteed to survive the ravages of time because of its intrinsic merit. Hirst knows better.
Fuck intrinsic merit and great art. Who needs that when you can have threadbare vacuity, futility, and entropy served on a platter for never-before-seen prices? You may be thinking that surely Greer's article is satire or parody. I'm afraid not. In her article,
Now please pay attention everybody. I'm about to tell you what art is.
She states that
art is anything an artist calls art. An artist is someone who makes or does something she or he thinks of as art. Making pictures can be called graphic art, but it is quite likely to have nothing to do with art whatsoever.
This is in sync with her statement that marketing is the real art of our time, and presumably not making pictures. Robert Hughes's defense of art made by artists themselves, his defense of beauty, meaning, feeling, and transcendence in art is too antiquated and too offensive to be tolerated in polite society. There's a new dawn, and we need to grow up. Instead of Hughes's hopelessly antiquated clinging to believing art has intrinsic value, we should embrace vacuousness, futility, decay, and the artistically threadbare or impotent, especially when it is sold for obscene prices. And now, as promised, let's hear what the shark has to say about being a priceless work of contemporary art.
Today on Art and Artifice, we have a very special topic, which is Damien Hirst's famous Shark Tank art called The Impossibility of Death in the Mind of Someone Living. And our special angle is we have an interview with the shark itself, which is a tiger shark. I'd like to introduce the shark. Hello! Shark, I want to ask, how do you like being an object in the museum? Pretty much sucks balls. All I do is float around all day in this formaldehyde or whatever the hell it is, and people look at me with disgust like they want to vomit. Just today, someone said I look like a turd floating in the tank. That's not how I like to think of myself. That may be true, but you are considered possibly the greatest work of art of any living artist. How do you feel about yourself as a piece of art? Well, I remember when I was swimming in the Pacific. I was eating stuff I was frightening. I was the king of the fish. Now look at me. I'm disgusting. I'm like a soggy sausage. I couldn't scare anything. All I could scare is people's lunch out of them. Well, and what do you think of Damien Hirst himself? Fuck him! He arranged to have me killed. Couldn't even do it himself. Paid some other people to kill me, and then stuck me in a bottle of formaldehyde for eternity so he could get rich. I'd like to sink my teeth in him, and I'd like to stick him in a tank of formaldehyde and cut him in half, too. We've heard now from the shark himself. I still think it's probably the greatest work of art of any living artist, and I think the shark just has a bit of an attitude problem, needs to adjust.
Thanks for watching, and tune in again for another adventure in art.
I'm definitely aware that I am the establishment now, so hopefully there's kids out there who are going to tell me to fuck off, in the way that I did when I came on the scene.
Here's a song that was beautiful when performed by my ancestor Art. Are you going to Scarborough Fair?
Parsley, sage, rosemary,